Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, whatever its name is. My name is Ellie.
And I'm Chris.
And this is a podcast in which we are going to rehash and dissect episodes of the show The Wire, the HBO original.
Yeah, this is my 151st time watching the series end to end.
And this is sort of my first time through. We'll say I kind of started watching a few episodes, but didn't make it through. So this is my real effort at making it through the series.
Yeah, and I'm really, really excited because I can't remember what it was like to not have The Wire in my life and have it ingrained in my brain. And I'm really excited, Ellie, to get your responses, your initial impressions of the show as we go through the series. So it's really exciting.
ready to share my impressions and responses with you.
Very good. All right. Well, we are going to start with season 1, episode 1, The Target.
Woohoo, The Target.
The synopsis from HBO. In this pilot episode, Baltimore detective Jimmy McNulty gets assigned to a new task force. Ooh.
That is a lame synopsis.
It's a really good hook, though. It was written by David Simon and Ed Burns, and it was directed by Clark Johnson.
Okay.
All right. And now, one thing we're going to do in our podcast is we're going to highlight the epigraph.
Yes.
Which is, did you get it this time?
I did. It is When It's Not Your Turn.
That's right.
This was said by Jimmy McNulty.
Excellent. All right. And so we are going to, now let's get to it. So what were your initial impressions, Ellie, of the episode?
Okay. So first time going through, I got to keep in mind, this is 2002.
Yep.
Right? And so when does this is 2002 when this comes out and 2002 when it's supposed to be taking place.
That's right.
So it is taking place in present day. And my first impressions is like, wow, progressive, super progressive, just as far as what they're portraying as the life of a cop, as the life of somebody who's, living on the streets, capturing what the war on drugs is like at that moment. And also, we can get into it more a little bit later, but I'm blown away by Kima, a lesbian black detective, being portrayed in 2002. That just seems really progressive, really revolutionary for that time, as I recall it, thinking about this 21 years later.
Yeah, definitely. And I just thought about that. They don't make a big deal about it. They just introduce it as this is her life.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I think that's right. And just to connect to that, I'll mention this a little bit later, but they mentioned 9/11 in the show. And this only took place, 8 or 9, the episode released less than a year after 9/11. Yeah. And so they already were talking about reducing emphasis on the drug war and things like that.
All of that going toward counterterrorism efforts. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
But yeah, just to come back to it, seeing the connection between Kima's home life, and again, it wasn't. They didn't make a big show of it, and
it's completely normalized. Really, the way that you find out is, they ask, I think, if they're going to take the Mercedes, and she's like, "No, I told my girl we wouldn't. The car's in her name," and that's your first clue there that she has a girlfriend or a wife. Or something.
That's interesting because that's actually I hate to correct you, but she's actually talking about the witness, her CI.
I thought she was talking. Oh no, you're right because that's the girl who's she's mad that her boyfriend is
right. Exactly.
Taking another girl out.
That's exactly.
In her car.
Exactly.
All right. I thought that was her girl.
But I love that because I love that that's your interpretation.
That was my interpretation.
Which is great.
She was just talking about my girl. It was her girl.
No, it's so funny. Yeah. I just promised the car that was confiscated during this drug bust. I'm just going to give it to my girlfriend.
Yes. Yeah, seriously. Well, okay, so that gets me to something else when we're talking about my impressions. This show, it's confusing. It is hard to dissect. Yeah. So I was taking notes for this episode. I'm looking at my notes right now, and there's at least 20 characters are introduced in this first episode. And then there's all the lingo, all of this stuff that I don't understand as far as, what they call things on the streets. They're rolling bones. I think that means no, that's craps, right?
That's right.
They said that's craps.
Yep.
Things like that, and then all of the police talk too. There's
Absolutely.
so many things, like acronyms they're using that I don't know. Lots of stuff like that, and so that's another impression. It's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a little work to understand all of this.
No, 100%. And that's a really great call out, because I think that one of the components, as I was rewatching again, my emphasis on this episode was how they lay out the exposition, and how I think it's done very artfully. Now, Ellie, you are a creative in your own in your personal life, and so I think for you have a little bit more experience, like how laying out exposition, but nevertheless, for me as a layman, I was really impressed by that. But the point I wanted to make about that was the show lays out like these events, and you might not actually even know. You have to kind of go back. Oh, that's how she ended up here.
Yes.
And speaking of Kima's home life, she gets a page, and then she's in the hospital. And if you're not really paying attention, you might be, wait, why is she there? And she got paged because Bubbles' pages are in the hospital, or from the hospital. So, and they don't lay it out. They don't, hey, who was that page from? Oh, it's from Bubbles. He needs to talk to me. And then they show, they don't lay any of that stuff out.
Right.
You have to pick it up along the way. Now, the good news is that I would say for you is that it will become more of the standard, and what they lay out is clear enough that you're not really falling behind. But the show does. David Simon himself said we want people to lean forward during the show and not to lean back.
Oh yeah, you got to have your active listening ears on for that whole thing.
Yeah, I did have one question for you about because as I'm watching it again, it's still baked in an environment of, I don't know about chauvinism, but it's definitely male oriented, and I didn't know what your perspectives were on that, or if it's just kind of it didn't maybe register with you.
It didn't register too much for me, and maybe that's just because I accept that this is a cop show, and that's probably going to be a big portion of what you see in a cop show.
Okay,
but
enough.
I was, impressed by Kima, especially you start getting the assistant prosecutor, assistant state attorney,
Rhonda
Perlman start coming in, and she's like, she's not taking any shit from these guys either. She's like, you call me up when you guys know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So I do feel like there are definitely some really strong female characters that made it feel, for me as a woman watching it, like those are hooks for me.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. I was, that's great to hear. I mean, so, okay. All right. Any other things you want to call out from the top, and then we could talk about kind of the, how the epigraph plays through the show.
No, I don't have anything right now. I'm just looking at my notes, but I definitely have some questions for you when we get to the end of your rundown.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what was the first scene that jumped out to you is when it's not your turn?
Okay, so McNulty tells Bunk not to answer any phones.
That's right.
At some point, right? And he's like, that let somebody else do that, or somebody else is on. But Bunk answers the phone, and he ends up having to deal with a dead body and not knowing whether it's going to be a homicide or not. And McNulty, right? He is kind of answering the phone also in a different way, in a figurative way, when he decides to start putting things together and going the next step with this, this theory about Avon Barksdale. So that is one place where I was kind of thinking it's not really his turn to step up. In so many cases, we see the detectives and the cops are finding excuses to not step up, really. That's not your time. That's not your job. Don't make my work harder. And you get instantly this idea that, no, he's somebody that's going to go the extra mile because it's the right thing to do. He even says that later on. He's just like, I'm going to do this case, So there's that that came up. It's interesting to me, too, when... hopping around a little bit during the trial for D'Angelo's trial, right? So they have the first guy, Gant, and he goes up and he's like, yeah, that's the guy who killed him. But then Ms. Lyle goes up and she says, I did call to tell them that I had, that I thought it was somebody else, and nobody picked up the phone, right? So you have this guy who his turn. He should have picked up the phone, and he never picks up the phone. But Bunk picks up the phone. McNulty kind of picks up the phone, right, in both of those cases. So I think you kind of see like that juxtaposition, what it's like when you do answer the call and when you don't, what happens. So.
I never thought about that. And that's very, very impressive.
Yeah.
I never once picked that up.
I like to be impressive.
So yeah, that you put that, because that's like it's obviously not even shown, and it's just like he just didn't pick up the phone.
Right. Yeah. And she even logs it. She's like, I called him this many times and he did not pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's interesting. Did you notice when she tells that story, her perspective in the courtroom about kind of the things that were laid out as part of like when that happened?
No, tell me more about that. What are you thinking?
Okay, so what they do, in terms of the camera shots, is when she's asked, you see that when she's asked by the assistant DA is the person in the courtroom, they actually focus on Stringer Bell, and he like is nodding.
Right.
So
like, okay, yes.
If nothing else, it indicates that there might be some kind of like. And I mean, D'Angelo basically says so later when you see what they do with that security lady. So
exactly.
So it is. So okay. So you knew that it was like a made up story, or that she was influenced.
Yeah, I knew that she was. Yeah, okay. that Stringer Bell is the one that's like somehow got a threat going against her, or has somehow incentivized her to not tell the truth.
But there's a metaphor. But you got the metaphor. You picked up the metaphor regardless. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, and I never really like thought about not picking up the phone. So
okay, I have one more though. Here's my other. Okay, do you want to go first?
No, please.
Okay, so my other connection for the epigraph, looser connection, but I thought it was kind of interesting for when it's not your turn, is between Bubs and Johnny. And Bubs goes first with the money, and he's trying to teach Johnny, like how he uses the fake bills, and he pours coffee on them and they get high. And then Johnny's like, I want to do it next time I want to do it. Right. Like, so he takes a turn trying to run that scam, and what happens to him?
Yeah, he gets beaten
completely
down.
fucked up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that was the other thing where I was thinking like, people taking a turn when they shouldn't, and what happens?
Yeah, that's excellent. And again, he takes his turn, but he wasn't ready to take.
He was not ready. No, he was not.
Yeah, really. I'm like I've seen this so many times, and that never really. And I was like looking forward to
talk about this stuff.
Well done.
Thank you.
I mean,
sir.
Hope that doesn't sound too patronizing, but anyway, that is.
No, I feel like it was well done. So okay. I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, very good. So I did want to mention. I did want to start with. You covered so much good ground. Before, I don't want to lose it though. I would like to start at the very top.
Let's do it.
With this opening scene.
Yeah.
Because it's not connected to the when it's not your turn.
But I just want to be
sure. What's that? Yeah, it's not boogie. Yeah, exactly.
The death is not boogie.
So I will say that I would like to, at a later date, go through just this scene in particular, particularly when we have a little bit more detail behind it, or you have more experience with the show, and because there's so much about this. But what I wanted to mention about what I love about the opening scene is that it really lays out the couple of really important components of the series in general. Yeah. So first off, you can tell right away that it's not a standard cop show because when the witness says, I'm not going to court, I'm not going to testify. I feel like a Law and Order episode, and I should pause here to say that while I consider The Wire to be the best show ever made, I'm going to do my best to not crap on other shows. Okay. But I do feel like in a typical network cop show, it'll be like, oh, you're going to talk, you're going to tell us the right, who did it or whatever. And and when you watch that particular scene, McNulty, he doesn't get mad. He just kind of like shifts in his seat and gets comfortable.
He doesn't. Yeah, like he's ready to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he knows that the witness is just going to keep talking. He's conflicted. And I love that because it's showing a little bit more about McNulty's character without saying it directly.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the good guy or anything like that. And he just kind of listens to him. So I love that part of it. But the other part that I love is that it starts to lay out this metaphor of the game, right? So everybody plays the game.
Yes.
There are rules to the game, and you have to follow the ruals, or there are consequences to it. And that is the introduction of that metaphor, and we'll see it throughout the series.
Yeah.
So the scene itself is so good, and I could go on forever about it, but I just love that part of it. And
so what do you think about that last line that they have before they go to the opening credits and the guy he's talking to, I don't remember what his name is.
He's unnamed.
Okay, the unnamed guy that he's talking to is, they're like, well, why do you keep letting him? He's like, this is America, it's a free country.
I gotta ask you, if every time Snot Boogie would grab the money and run away, why'd you even let him in the game?
What?
If Snot Boogie always stole the money, why'd you let him play?
Got to. This America, man.
So what is that line about? Is that like just, this is, I don't know, like it's inevitable that this is going to happen? I have no control because this is kind of the overruling thing? I don't get that line.
Oh, you don't?
I don't think I get that line.
So that's interesting. Okay, so I have many thoughts about it,
okay.
And I'll try to keep them concise for the purposes. But I just get the sense that anybody that wants to play the game gets to play the game. But if you play, you have to play by the rules. And so they're not the ones who decide who gets to play and who doesn't get to play. Right. It's just...
And they don't decide what the rules are either. Those are just
essentially, yeah, rules. That's right. That's right. So that's kind of the. But I think that if you were to go in, I will say, I'll leave it there. Yeah. But I think there's a lot more to that statement than that David Simon and Ed Burns are trying to get through. But it's kind of outside the scope of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to just cover that because that scene is so great. I'll also mention one other thing just before too long is that witness is never shown. Again, that's his only appearance in the entire series. That's little. I hope that's not a spoiler. And I just love that that the creators put this McNulty and this witness together, and that's the dialogue for the opening scene. I love that. I think it shows a lot of confidence about about what the story they're going to tell, and they didn't have to have Bunk and McNulty and whatever. So is
Snot Boogie then one of the 10 deaths that he's attributing to Avon Barksdale, or is that something totally different? Just setting us up for what McNulty is like as a detective.
Yeah, I would say that's just a step. Yeah, it's just to kind of lay out McNulty as a detective. Okay. So I wanted to, I'd like to just shift over to, you talked about McNulty and when it's not your turn, and I think they're kind of like two big threads of when it's not your turn throughout the episode. McNulty is one, and if you kind of watch McNulty and his thread, as I mentioned, like the exposition that they do, his journey through this episode is he has all this information and he gets to explain it to all these people. And in doing so, but it feels organic, right? Because it's like, if you had two cops talking to each other and like, essentially if you had McNulty and Bunk talking to each other, theoretically both of them know and understand what the Barksdales are doing because they're working cases all the time that are attributed to this drug crew. That wouldn't make any sense, like why they're talking to each other about like who Avon Barksdale is. Instead, McNulty goes to the judge who has no information. And so that leads to going to, Major Rawls. And so, but also a couple other things about that so let's go to Major Rawls. And in that scene, you see not just that, McNulty's adding more information about why he cares about the Barksdales, just because they beat him up in court. He lost a case and now he's pissed off about it and he wants to get him. I think there's something a little bit more noble about that, but we'll see. But also that you see that Rawls is a bureaucrat. So he's a police officer, but he doesn't care about solving cases.
No, he cares about chain of command. That's exactly what he cares about, which was interesting to me because I was just like, I don't know, from my perspective, okay, I'm not a Major Rawls, but I just feel like you'd be so glad if one of your detectives like put all these pieces together into what could be a real landmark case, and instead he's just pissed at McNulty that he talked to the judge, even though the judge is the one that called him out and started asking him questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And he cares about the stats. right?
Exactly.
Why are you busting my balls about a prior year case?
Yeah.
That year is done over and done with, and I have to solve this case.
I
I
know.
don't
Yeah,
care.
exactly. Yes.
And that to me is like, it really lays out some of the initial challenges too, which I appreciate. And I mean, and Landsman kind of does that same thing. Like that murder should be there.
Yeah.
Also, I did want to mention one other thing about, and I'm sorry for going so long about this, but what I like about the Bunk McNulty when they meet at the crime scene.
Yeah.
Again, another really interesting message about how this isn't a normal cop show. Can you imagine, like, is there another cop show where there's a dead body on the ground and that never is referenced again to the entire episode? And the guy's like,
so true.
You better not
Smoke
come
him
back.
if you got him.
Yeah, you guys better not come back a murderer. And then like he does, and then you hear about it again.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
They don't care about solving. I mean, they do care about solving it, but they don't. They'd rather not have the stat. They want someone else to have to solve it because you have a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So, so not only is he like facing the challenge, McNulty, of the trying to actually go after this crew, but also he's got to fight the bureaucracy that's in front of him. So,
and there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Good God.
And then the other thread, and we haven't touched really on D'Angelo at all, is like the D'Angelo thread, because he is sort of the exposition from the Barksdale side.
Right. Yes.
So what were your impressions of D'Angelo?
He is so unlikable at first because he just kind of comes across as just like, this punk that's getting away with something that he did that was really terrible. But I can't believe how much he develops just in that first episode. You see him walk away from Johnny and the guys, and they just start beating him up, and you can tell he's really conflicted about how they just basically put this guy in the ICU. And then with the end, you finish up with Gant being shot, and you can just see that he's just like, oh my gosh, this is all being done because of what I did, and I can't believe that it's gone this far, and I don't necessarily agree with it. So yeah, I really like him as a character. I started out just being like, I'm not going to like him at all. And then at the end, you're just like, oh, yeah, he's got a lot more meat to him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And I think that what's interesting about it is, he is coming from a position where he's getting away with this, but he's still, like very green, kind of to use Bubbles' term. Like Wee-Bey is sort of forcing him to explain what the rules are for, and this is like the first introduction into the Barksdale crew, and one of the first introductions is like they have rules about how they do things, and D'Angelo doesn't seem to recognize, or he's like, oh, we're fine, you're in your truck. Like,
yeah, exactly. The fact that Avon Barksdale pulls him over, takes him out of the car, and is like, what are the rules? I wrote down the rules. You want to hear the rules?
Yeah, please.
Don't talk in the car or on the phone, or in any place that ain't ours. And don't say shit to anybody who ain't us. So that's just telling you right there, like, somebody's going to talk to somebody that they weren't supposed to talk to, or said something somewhere that they weren't supposed to say it.
What's the rule?
I know the rule.
Say it.
Don't talk in the car. Or on the phone, or in any place that ain't ours, and don't say shit to anybody who ain't us. But it was just you, yo, and it's your fucking truck. Don't talk in the car.
I love it.
That is very nice. I'll also mention one thing, a detail about that particular scene is that you have Wee-Bey and D'Angelo are on the street, and over their heads, one says burgers, the other says chicken. It's like a restaurant right behind him, and it's sort of a metaphor for each of their characters. Like Wee-Bey's hard; he's like the red meat kind of guy, and so now that doesn't really come into play anywhere else. But it's just one of those funny details.
That's good. I like that.
And again, like I'll mention this a few times, but again, like Wee-Bey just says, "Say it, say the rules," and then he doesn't talk again.
Well.
And because there's no need for him to say anything else. He just says say it, and then D'Angelo's got to recite them all off, and then they go, all right, man, let's go, and that's it, which I just love. So, and then we go and meet Avon in the club. Yep. And now we get to see kind of the mastermind of him and Stringer, and the combination of those two. So so how'd that scene kind of register for you?
That's kind of, it's interesting. Avon sort of dresses him down. But that you can tell right off the bat that there's affection behind it, and he's not treating him like he's treating anybody else. So then you find out that they are related, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm kind of holding out here on Avon. You don't get too much of him. We just know that he's in charge of everything. He has specific ways of doing things, and you know, though D'Angelo's fucked up, he's still Avon's boy. He's his cousin, right? They're cousins.
Nephew. D'Angelo's his nephew. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I mean, it is amazing. Like, he doesn't really have a lot of speaking, but he just does. And you can see that, you know, in the part right before it, he's talking about this guy that just got out of jail. And he's not reaching out to him.
Right,
he's not,
exactly.
You know, he's making the guy pay for his drinks, even though it sounds like he was part of his crew.
Yeah, and he tells D'Angelo, like, you want to know about jail, go down there and sit next to, like, Marcel or whatever his name is. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, but yeah, as you said, like, so he kind of, if there's one part where I was like, man, maybe they would have talked about this already. Like, this lesson that he kind of lays out, and he kind of lays out what the actual crime was, as much as you're going to hear about it outside the courtroom. You know, he kind of lays it all out, and you're like, well, would they have already talked about that? But he's like, no, you're going to go back to work. You got to keep your head about you. You know, keep your mind to shit is what he said, or that's what Stringer says. But in any case, so he kind of lays out the whole, and so you kind of get this background about between him and D'Angelo about what actually happened. Yes. And I will say, I did have a little bit of a concern of, like, if D'Angelo was being attacked by Pooh Blanchard, the victim.
I know, he's saying, like, I was. You know, he was coming at me. Like, he felt like it sounded to me like D'Angelo saying, like, I felt like I was going to die in that moment. I had to do this to protect myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, you know, I don't want to, but that's like George Zimmerman's whole defense right there was that this guy was coming at me. And, which is obviously like, now it's a whole separate situation because he was in Florida or whatever, but it doesn't matter. But point being that, like, so you lay out the whole thing, but then also, you know, Avon's saying, like, look, you got to be smart, and you kind of, and it starts D'Angelo's journey about how I'm going to do better. Yeah. And, you know, whereas if you had started already established, you wouldn't have this kind of precipitating event. True. So yeah, I did like it. And then later we see Stringer, who doesn't have any of the affection for D'Angelo, and it's a really interesting dichotomy of between the two. Yeah. You know, you have kind of the good cop, bad cop.
Yeah,
so
Stringer's all business and is, like, even, you know, delivering the bad news from Avon about, like, this is, you know, now you're going to be in this position because Ronnie Moe got, what do they call it? Like
851. Oh,
851. Yes, I had to look that up.
I'm sorry. Well, and please. I meant to look it up, but
851.
You're doing the job.
Ronnie Moe got 851. That means that he was arrested by police, and it's a reference to the call number for police radios. Ah. That's what it is.
Very nice.
Yes.
Ellie.
Yes.
Coming in big in a big spot.
I'll be your dictionary for
Excellent.
today. Yes.
Well, okay. All right, so then and so then we get introduced to a couple more characters. Actually, let's back up. Have we skipped over anybody yet? Any scenes you want to cover?
Let me think about this.
Because the next, I was going to take us back over to the pit.
Keep going. Yeah, the pit.
So actually, we do get introduced a little bit to Bubbles. So did you know? Did that make any sense to you when you get introduced to Bubbles and they're doing this? And did you kind of understand what was happening? Was it clear? Because there's no context.
Oh, that they are making counterfeit money to buy drugs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got that part, but like you didn't know who this guy. You're like, who the hell is this guy?
He's out of nowhere. I mean, I assumed that he is from, you know, the streets of Franklin Terrace. That you know he is a druggie, a junkie that's gonna need to get some drugs from you know Avon's crew.
Yeah, okay,
that's all I know.
Okay, yeah. I mean that's fine. It was. You know, I think when you're watching it again, if you're not really like paying attention, you're not invested. Yeah. You'd be like, "What the hell is happening? Who is this guy now?" Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, okay, cool. So and then so we get to the pit, and then we get introduced to a few more people.
Yes.
So you got Wallace. You have Bodie, and you have Poot. And
that orange couch. Oh my god, that orange couch must be so disgusting. Like I can't. That's all I can think when I'm watching that scene. Is like that thing is so. Probably so like mildewy and damp and gross. I'm sorry. That's just a side note. I can't stand the orange couch.
Okay.
Keep going.
There's a whole story behind it. I will get to it in a later date.
I cannot wait to find out more about the orange couch. Maybe if you build some affection for me with the orange couch, because right now I want to go at it with a steam cleaner. It looks so bad. So bad. Okay.
That is okay. I think in episode. Sorry, I was almost going to get a spoiler. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Okay,
don't tell me.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you about that. You might just have to get used to the fact that there's a couch in the middle of the pit.
Okay, that's really hard.
What I like about the way they introduced D'Angelo to the pit is that, he's sort of identifying kind of how they have to be cautious and how those rules, like, it's not just about like making sure you're not caught on a wire. You have to be making sure that people can't snap pictures. And he gets to explain to all these people who have been running this area that were basically just lucky that they didn't get picked up already because they had it all, they were being so careless with how they were distributing the drugs. So, and so now you kind of establish that they're going to take the same kind of care down here. And you as someone who's not familiar with the drug trade, I assume.
No, can't imagine that I am. No, I'm not.
Like you're like, oh, okay,
Sorry,
this
audience, I don't know a lot about the drug trade.
No. But it all does seem to make a lot of sense, right? In the
sure.
sense of like, oh yeah, of course, like that makes like you don't want people to be able to take pictures of you taking money and then giving drugs.
Everything that he says makes total sense. Yeah.
So and then
but they even educate him because I think it's like, is it Bodie? Is that his name? Mm-hmm. And he's like, you better count that money.
Yeah,
like you don't know what you're doing here. You better count the money before you walk away. Just put it in your pocket. Yeah, it kind of goes a little both ways.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's a great point. And and it's interesting too because like Wallace, who you're just being introduced to now, and he has kind of this dichotomy, right? Because on the one hand, he knows that Alexander Hamilton wasn't the president,
but he can't do basic math.
Right, but he didn't. Yeah, exactly. So
subtract 7 from 20 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a funny.
I know that it's so funny too because this of course came out before Hamilton, like before.
Right.
Hamilton was like somebody that we all knew and were familiar with. So
yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I do have to say, like that line that D'Angelo says,
got a dead fucking president on it.
Nigga, I don't give a fuck about the president. That shit ain't money. He ain't no president. What you mean? Hamilton? He ain't no president. Nigga, is you crazy? Ain't no ugly ass white man get his face on no legal motherfucking tender except he president.
Ugly ass white man is going to get his picture on any legal motherfucking tender.
Yeah. Unless he's
president. God, what a line. I just can't. Oh, man. So good. So, and then, of course, it kind of gets tied up in a bow when Johnny tries to use the counterfeit money. And it kind of looks same kind of, it's a bit of an analogy to what happened with Snot Boogie, right? I mean, he tried to get drugs for free, runs off, gets beat down. And then, okay, so let's see. Any other? I think I'm kind of mostly at the end of the that kind of exposition scenes. Anything else? Any other scenes you thought you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I like the scene with McNulty and Bunk in the bar.
Yeah,
I really love that scene because it just establishes so much of their relationship with each other. You know, Bunk just knows he needs to stay for another drink or 2 drinks with McNulty without McNulty even saying anything, you know, and you get to know too that McNulty's divorced, that he doesn't get to see his kid as much as he wants or doesn't have the flexibility to see his kid as much as he wants. So I kind of liked learning about his backstory a little bit more with that. And then the bridge over the River Kwai reference. So have you seen that movie?
No.
I haven't seen it either, but I did look at a synopsis.
Okay.
So I feel like I almost saw the movie. But I thought that was a really interesting little reference that he puts in there because he's like, I feel like I'm in the bridge over the River Kwai or something he says. So do you know about that? Do you want me to tell you about that movie?
Please, yes.
Okay,
I in fact, believe it or not, I had it out from the library for like 3 weeks and I never cracked the case.
Oh my gosh, you dork. Of course you would have. But you had to fall through. Yeah. Okay, we'll watch that sometime. Okay. But anyway, so it's about these British POWs. They are prisoners of war of some Japanese soldiers, and they are in a camp and they become laborers. They have to build a bridge over the River Kwai. And they start out trying to sabotage it, and they decide they're not going to build this bridge very well. They do shoddy workmanship, but over time, they kind of decide that they're going to do this the best bridge that they can to, like boost morale. And so they really build a good bridge that then, and spoiler alert for anybody who wanted to go see the bridge over the River Kwai, then there's this troop of like 4 British commandos that then come, their own guys that come and like destroy the bridge, blow up the bridge. So it's kind of interesting to me. It's like McNulty saying, like, he's talking about this process that, who's the narcotics?
Daniels?
Yeah, Daniels, that Daniels wants to go through. And it's like he's saying, like, I'm putting all this work in, I'm going to be shot in the foot by my own people. They're going to disrupt this whole process. They're going to make this thing never work. This is going to be all for naught because of my side. You know, my guys. You know, that's what I got out of
Excellent.
that.
Oh, man, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I had to
well
go
done.
deep on that.
Again, well done.
I try.
Yeah. I thought it was going to go in a different direction, which is like they're going to build this really strong bridge, and that's going to lead to like losses on the British side because the Japanese now have this bridge to get to wherever. But now that's pretty okay. Yeah. For some reason, I thought I did know that it was like there's a bridge blowing up at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, if anybody else has a different interpretation of the synopsis of the movie, or you've actually seen the movie, that, you know, chime in.
Yeah,
I'd love to know what other people think about that.
Yeah. You can tweet at us as soon as we have a Twitter handle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so. Yeah, I love that too. I also will say I use, God damn it, you're going to make me go another round with my buddies all the time.
Yes,
where like, it's not right, quite, I'm not quite ready to say goodnight. Let's have one more drink. Which I just love. But and so and what's interesting is the connection. I think they layer that scene with the Kima Cheryl scene, which I think is kind of interesting, just because like you're kind of seeing McNulty at the end of a relationship, and Kima are kind of in the middle of a happy relationship.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting to see that dichotomy.
Yeah, I agree.
And then of course you have Bunk talking about driving home to shoot this.
To shoot a mouse. You shot a mouse with your service weapon?
Which apparently was a true story. I'll have to double check. But yeah, apparently David Simon references, or Ed Burns referenced it from their days on the,
oh my gosh.
And I'll pause it. So David Simon, for those who don't know, wrote this book called Homicide: Life, Year in the Life of the Killing Streets, where he was embedded with the Baltimore Police Department for a year. And so he picks up all these stories, and Ed Burns was a detective in Baltimore as well. So so a lot of these references, in fact, a lot of the stories, the Snot Boogie story was an actual case of someone who actually was killed.
Oh, okay.
And so when they include details about cases or whatever, those are almost all like were real.
Yeah, I think even like the location references and things. I mean, Bub says, you know, we ain't burning no Lemon Street chumps, and Lemon Street's like a actual street in that area. I think.
That's right. Yeah, very good. Once again, well done.
I did my homework.
Yes, you did. And so so Lemon Street is a little bit south of where they are, because they say bottom end of Vine Street. Yeah. So Vine Street, and then Lemon Street's about looked like about 8 blocks south, and then Homer Avenue, which was the FBI. Video that's way up northwest.
That's it, because they're like, oh, you know, you're looking for Ronnie Moe. Oh, he uptown or something like that. So that they're actually referring to where those different parts of the police station are. Okay.
Yep. So so that's.
We need to make a map, I think, or we need like a map to reference.
I did grab a couple of screenshots of where these, like how to get from Lemon Street to Vine Street. But in any case, I do think that like when you go into it, it's certainly great to. We should put like on our Instagram of like here's where this is referenced and so on and so forth. But
that's also I want to that's one I want to try to incorporate into my regular language. Just we ain't burning no Lemon Street chumps. I don't know when I could use that, but I really want to try to work that into my regular vernacular.
Well, you can keep trying it out and workshop it and see how it goes, and I'll let you know. I'll give you constructive criticism.
Thanks, thank you.
I think the last. Let's see, we talked about that one. I think the last thing I just want to mention are like there's a couple of scenes when I think for most of us we're dealing with bureaucracy in our own lives, right? I mean, the game. Yep. Kind of, if you look around you, you're playing a game of some sort. I think I want to say it was Einstein, who said like, learn the rules of the game and play them better than anybody to succeed. Or I'm paraphrasing, but like, whether you're at work or whatever. And one of the things I just like about, or one of the things you learn, and which I'll admit from my own failings, is that I watched The Wire. And then I never sort of took Rawls's lesson of like, dude, don't fuck the guy up the chain from you. Like, there's just no. It doesn't matter. And what McNulty thinks is like, hey, I'm right. I'm doing the right thing here. Right. And Rawls couldn't give a shit.
He could not give
it doesn't matter.
No.
And it doesn't matter. Being right is not relevant, especially at work. You have to be like you do have to actually manage the chain of command. And and Lansam says like, keep it up, man. I got this a 20 against a 10 that you're gonna be riding the boat.
It's got dots. Deputy loves dots.
Fuck you and your dots.
Look, all I did was answer the guy's questions. He's a fucking judge.
And the deputy's the fucking deputy. And he, not the judge, has what's left of your beshitted career in his hot little hands. He says so. You're walking foot in the Western tomorrow.
Fuck it, I came from Western.
Well, where don't you want to go, asshole? Evidence control? Personnel. Headquarters security.
The boat? The Marine unit? Yeah, those diesel fumes that make me feel seasick.
That's good. Keep it up. I'll go this against a 10. You're riding the boat midnight shift.
If you keep going like this, because nobody cares if you're right. They just care about whether you're fucking somebody up the chain from you, and that matters more than anything else. And so it's a really important lesson. And like obviously that's what happened to D'Angelo too, is he basically kind of fucked up Avon by they had to like get him out of court, figure out rig this trial for him and so on and so forth. So you end up like, hey, if you're out there and you're like, make sure you're covering your boss's ass first. Right. Even if you don't think it's the right thing to do, just make sure he's covered, and then and you'll be, and at least you'll have that part, and then you can be right after that. So, all right. So those are all the notes I had. So what do you have any questions? What questions
do. Okay, so I think the one question that I have, something that we have not addressed yet in our conversation. Okay, Bunk and Jimmy, they are drinking out by the car by the train, and Jimmy goes to pee right in front of the oncoming train, and just kind of, Bunk's just sort of talking to him. He's like, Jimmy, and then he just like sort of looks up and he nonchalantly just walks out of the way of this oncoming train, like right in the nick of time, basically. Just, I don't know. What do you think about that scene as, foretelling?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I will tell you that is one of the train. No, I'm not spoiling anything, but they will be back at the train tracks at various points. And it's, I think it's an important, it's still one of the most debated symbols of the entire show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, right, if they're being foreshadowing, what would it mean? Like he's kind of like going down this path and he avoids avoids it, but he's kind of like pissing on his own leg. You know what I mean? It's interesting. Yeah. It's hard to, I didn't pick anything up on it at the time, and I think that it's a good kind of symbol to think about.
Yeah.
Especially, it's like I'm going to do this case and that kind of thing, and we'll see how it ends up playing out.
Right.
But I think certainly from the metaphors, like you can go up against a train and you will lose.
Yeah.
So best to just get out of the way.
Right.
Did you have a different interpretation? Is that kind of how you thought about it?
I think it just is kind of like, there is something coming. There's something looming. It's really dangerous. And I don't know, it makes me question, like, is Jimmy going to approach it in a slightly careless way at first, where he's just kind of like not, or just overconfident in his estimation of his abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, certainly. Let's keep it on. Let's put a pin in that. See how it comes out.
We'll see.
Okay, and then any others that came up for you?
I'm just excited that the team is already starting to get assembled. Mm-hmm. I like that. Usually, in stories, the assembly of the team happens later on in the story after more exposition. So I'm excited that we're already getting started with the assembly of the team, and I'm just kind of excited to see the interaction between McNulty and Jimmy and Kima.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that you called that out, because you have kind of the in as much as this is still an incredibly impressive bit of fiction, it still kind of follows a bit of the formula, which is like call to action,
right,
and then formation of the group, and so we are through that part. Now you have the investigative group together, but you can see right away there are all these not weird, but certainly like unique perspectives that are coming in. They don't all come together in a united experience, and they're all, they've got, Herc is like, let's go down there and fuck some people up. Like, what the hell are you talking? Like, that's crazy. Like, why is that your first?
No, let's take a second to talk about Herc and Carver.
Yeah.
Those two are like, they're like knuckleheads, really, and you kind of like them, but you're super annoyed by them. But then Carver does say that whole thing on the war on drugs. Oh, yeah, girl, you can't even call this shit a war. Why not? Wars end.
Yeah.
You heroic motherfuckers kill me. Fighting the war on drugs, one brutality case at a time.
Girl, you can't even call this shit a war.
Why not?
Wars end.
Yeah, and then Herc goes to like write it down.
Yeah,
it's so Like I had to write it down myself. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting to mention it because, and I one other thing about that is I like that, maybe I'm overdressing this, but, Daniel's looking and saying Kima's my best right now. Yeah. To me, it's like if there's a goal that everybody should have is that if your boss is talking to somebody else up the chain and like who you're going to use, make sure they say I'm your best person,
is my
right?
best
Yeah.
person.
So, but in any case, and she is like clearly she's doing all the paperwork and she's putting really putting in the effort, whereas her. What's the number for ECU? He can't even remember this basic number or whatever.
They don't look for two guns.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It and absolutely like they are laid out in this way, and Kima's kind of initially elevated just in terms of like clear dedication to the task and all that stuff. I liked her. The dynamic between her and Daniels. Daniels comes out and he's like, "We got to find out as much as we can about this guy," and they're just like talking back and forth. He knows that he can't go to Herc or Carver. And,
exactly.
So and let's see, and then you also have like a minor character in Santangelo, who he's a murder detective as well, or homicide, I should say, and he is like, well, I've never heard of this Barksdale, so why the hell is he like a criminal mastermind? Not ever once entertaining the idea of like maybe the fact that you haven't heard of him makes it like is why he's like
why he's a mastermind.
So so that's a kind of an interesting component as well. So I think that what would be great is to come back to the group and kind of getting like a temperature check of like how do you feel like the group is like operating and
that's a good
and
idea.
That kind of thing. So any other questions?
That's it for now.
Let me just make sure I got. There are a couple of details. Let me see. Make sure. No, I think those are basically it. Anybody that didn't have a big part that stood out for you?
Oh! Who's the deputy ops guy? Burrell.
Burrell.
Yeah. So he's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Like you can see that I don't know, he's all kind of bureaucracy. He doesn't want any surprises. Make sure you keep me in the loop. But he's being presented as so likable right now that, I'm like, my ears are pricking up for him. And I'm interested to see how he either facilitates or stands in the way of what's going to happen. That's kind of, I love Judge Phelan.
Yeah,
I do love him.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was good.
He's great.
Yeah, and the way that he and McNulty kind of work together, I think, is really. That dialogue I thought was really good. So, I will. Sorry, I didn't want to mention. I'll connect with that. So, one of my favorite characters in the entire show is Detective Barlow. So the one that was. So and by the way, when you were talking about how Barlow didn't pick up the phone, what's he doing? When he is on the phone, that's why he didn't pick up the phone, because he's talking about pressure treated wood or whatever. And oh my God,
fair enough. That is pretty expensive stuff.
And so, I just love that actor. He just absolutely kills it. And I mean, and then when he says to Stringer on the way out, "You think I give a fuck? I'm going to be chalking you off." Oh my God, that is just like.
Think I give a fuck? I'll be chalking you off one night.
You have a nice day.
Can you imagine a police officer saying that to somebody? Like, I mean, obviously he must have, but like, you're going to be dead soon, and I'm going to be catching the case. Like, holy shit, that is some. But he just that character, and I don't know why I love that guy so much, but he just absolutely kills that scene, and I appreciate it.
I'll keep my eyes open for
that. And so I will just a little thing for you to keep an eye on for sure is that Alexa Fogel is the casting director, and she did such a good job. And I'll just mention this here. I think it was David Simon who talks about like why they didn't use more well-known actors in the show. And I think Frankie Faison, who plays Burrell, is probably the one actor that I recognize because he was in Coming to America.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're so right.
And D'Angelo was in The Waterboy, but that's like these were like small parts or they just weren't super mainstream.
Right.
And one of the reasons that I mentioned that is because why David Simon mentioned is because if you brought in a really well-known actor, they would supersede the story in a way. And so you kind of forget that the reality that they're trying to present here.
That's a good point.
And so so when you have these characters that come in and just add color or whatever.
And you've never seen them be a different character, you can more readily accept that they are the person they're representing.
Exactly. And so and it's a lot of them are Baltimore actors, like people in the Baltimore scene.
Oh, cool.
So outside of Baltimore, maybe if you were in Baltimore and you know, hey, let us know if you lived in Baltimore. You're like, oh yeah, I saw that guy a bunch of times or whatever. But
or does it seem authentic to you as a Baltimorean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
Wait, is that what they call them? Baltimoreans?
For homework for later.
Okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, and so there are a lot of cameos that you will see in the show that I just really appreciate because they just really, it feels to me like in order to actually pull this off, where the person doesn't, hits the lines and stuff, like, wow, it just must have taken a bunch of direction, but it's really more like, they're just people that are in their own element and they're professionals. They're reaching past like the top set of headshots that come from the main, places. So I just appreciate that. So, okay. I think that anything else from your side that you want to cover before we kind of conclude?
I just think Idris Elba really needs to work on his Baltimore accent. He still sounds too English to me. I can still hear it.
That's so funny. Did you see him? Had you seen him in like any of his like where he's using his sort of?
I've seen him in other stuff since. So it's kind of interesting because now, since I'm watching it 21 years later, a lot of these people have become big. Not all of them, but some of them have. And I've seen them in other stuff. So it is kind of weird. Like Idris Elba is one where I just have a very clear picture of how he talks and what he sounds like and what he looks like. And then seeing him in this role. Yeah. That one is a little bit more of a stretch for me than the rest.
Interesting. Okay.
For somebody who's watching it way after the fact.
Yeah, that's interesting because I never once registered with me. But what is interesting is that Dominic West in the first few episodes is trying to do a Baltic. He is British also, and he's doing.
Oh, he's British?
Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's pulling it off. That's all I have to
okay.
say.
Well, but the funny thing is that in that very first scene in particular, he's doing a really thick Baltimore accent, and they're like, "This isn't working." So he
really?
totally
like
evens it out.
Okay. Okay.
But that's funny though. I mean, there are some scenes with Idris in the future where you're just like, it feels very authentic to me. But it'll be interesting to see now that you kind of see it.
I'm ready for it. We'll see.
All right, so predictions for episode 2. What do you kind of think is going to happen in episode 2?
Predictions. So I think D'Angelo's going to be concerned or upset about what happened to Gant. I think he's going to bring it up with Avon, or something's going to happen there. Let's see here. What else? I'm excited for, as I mentioned, the team to be assembled. So I'm thinking they're going to have a more defined plan, and that McNulty is going to convince them that they need to play the long game and not do what do they call it when they do the hand to hands and stuff like that, the way that they want to do it, the traditional way that they've wanted to do things. And of course we've already had the little sneak peek at the wiretapping, right? And so we know that that's going to be a part, but I don't know if that's going to come in on the next episode yet or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Those are two excellent predictions. I will not tell you whether you're right or not. We will just come back and remember.
Okay.
And then you had mentioned here, I think this is great. So one thing we will add in future episodes is callbacks. So if there's a time when, hey, if we don't cover like, oh, this is a connection back to this, because this is one of those things where one of those shows where there will be connections. You'll have to we have to kind of like wind all the way back potentially. To remember like, oh, this happened here, and let's remember the precipitating event and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But obviously in this episode there's none of that. But you had a question.
I'm hearing we need some flow charts. That's what I'm
possibly. I hear that makes good social media content.
All right, great.
But so none today, but next time. Okay. But you asked about, and I think this is really a great question. And one of the reasons why I am so excited to be doing this with you is because, like any good art, it gets people to talk and ask questions and think about how it applies to their world today. So how did you feel like the episode held up for you?
Yeah, if we're talking about how this episode from 2002 holds up in 2023, I mean, I think it holds up really well. There are so many themes, so many issues in this that are still relevant and that we're still struggling with on the same level. The whole war on drugs, even though marijuana may be legalized, they're talking about dope in the show. Marijuana is legalized in a lot of places, but still not everywhere. We're still talking about, cocaine and other kinds of illicit drugs and the war against them. I mentioned that I think the whole look at Kima is super progressive and love that her being a Black gay woman is just totally normalized in the show. What else?
Well, I
could
say
one other thing I was going to say and I forgot. I'm sorry, Chris.
Well, let's see. I did write out some notes.
I got to write down my notes.
You did mention about, and you talked about Daniels.
Yeah, Lieutenant Daniels is, there's that part that, McNulty is asking Bunk about Daniels and wanting to get the lowdown on him. And, he's talking about, he is somebody he's going to move up because he's a young Black man. He's got a law degree. He's really a company man. And I think, these opportunities for people of color to have positions of leadership, especially in policing, is pretty important. Something we're talking about now.
You know Daniels? Narcotics?
Mm-hmm. What about him?
He's running this detail.
Watch your ass, then.
Are you a snake?
No, he ain't that, but he's a company man. A prospect. Grapevine says the next district to open up is his.
Shortlist for major?
He's Black, still young. He hasn't pissed anybody off. Shit, he even has a law degree.
No shit.
University of Baltimore, but still,
Well, he's gonna fuck this Barksdale thing up.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree. And it, in a funny way, they don't mention how good he is as a police officer, just that he's got these other characteristics.
True. Yes, exactly.
But of course, in a weird way, like, that's kind of, as we talked about before,
right.
Being a good police officer is almost like secondary to like how well do you play the game.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. So,
yes.
And then, and of course, like you have the part that I was listening to, I was like, man, this is so embarrassing to kind of watch like Herc talk about like fucking people up in the terrace, but that feels very much like there's still a lot of police brutality and, people don't like to talk about it, but it was existed back then and still kind of exists today. And that's a little bit, it's certainly disappointing to see that. So, I think that just, again, the bureaucracy of things, like the way, what is actually important to a job and being successful in that job.
Yep.
A lot of the time it isn't being good at the job itself. It's about playing the game well.
It's about getting through the hoops.
Yeah. And so certainly that to me really resonates, and it resonates today just as it ever did. And so when you think about these institutions are supposed to be honorable and whatever, it's like, well, they're all playing a game of some sort. And the only question is whether that game is in our best interest or, if it's a institution for the government, whatever. So, I definitely agree that it held up well. But me being a super fan, most of the time, it's going to be a tough sell to tell me it didn't. So, but nevertheless.
And I may disagree with you later down the line, but I do think if this is an episode that came out today on HBO, this is a show that came out right now, that people would think that this was totally relevant and these are current issues that we're dealing with.
The only difference would be the technology being
right. Exactly.
So,
yes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, great. Well, that covers everything we wanted to cover. So thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye. The Wired and Rewired Podcast is Ellie Peterson and me, Chris Aronchek. Our theme song is Nice Vibes by Neon Beach. Want to holler at us? You can email us at wiredandrewired@gmail.com or hit us on the burner at 240-488-0060 to leave us a voicemail. We're Wired and Rewired on all the socials. And of course, if you like the show, please give us a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps other Wire fans discover the show. And until next time...
Don't answer no phones, Bo.
Yeah.